Hi, welcome to the Entrepreneurial Edge. I'm Chris Bishop. Now, how many millionaire entrepreneurs made their first money through shops? In Africa, there's Woolworths, ShopRite, Checkers. Further afield, Marks and Spencer's in Britain, Walmart and Bloomingdale's in the United States. For an entrepreneur, the key is always the simple question. How do you get people to come into your shop and part with their money? Sounds easy, but it's not, especially in these recessionary times. Now this week, we have an entrepreneur who tries to find the answer to that burning question. Welcome, Sybran Strauss, the co-founder of Fernridge Consulting, an entrepreneur who has made a fortune of trying to answer the question of how to get people to shop across Africa, in Namibia, Botswana, Kenya, Nigeria, Uganda and Rwanda, to name but a few. Before I chat to Sybran, let's go to the offices and find out a bit more about what they do.
Fernridge Consulting, a research consulting firm, was founded in 2002 by Sybran Strauss and Stephen Walters. The company's major focus is doing research on the African continent. Stephen Walters, Chief Operating Officer and co-founder of Fernridge, gave us some insight into the humble beginnings of the company.
We started in the back of my garage. We're one of that businesses. So I was very proud to look at that ads recently on TV. We did start in the back of the garage, and it was a two-man show, and soon we were free, adding a lady to the party. And today we've got 23 people and it's going strong.
The company provides research for clients to make informed decisions about the areas where they want to invest.
Our main task is really to analyze potential and to assess sites on behalf of clients, so that when they invest their money, we can help them to reduce their investment risk. So essentially what we're doing is we identify where they should be. We also do turnover estimations for retail and identify where the best places would be to roll out the network of stores.
Ilse van der Merwe, General Manager of Fernridge, gave us some insight into the company's African footprint.
We've already got quite an elaborate footprint in South Africa, with all the metropolitan areas covered already, all of the large cities and even some of the smaller cities. Subsequently, we moved into the rest of Africa, and we already have 65 African cities covered, from a small Keetmanshoop in Namibia to Nairobi in Kenya. We're currently busy with Lagos in Nigeria, so we're covering quite an extensive area in sub-Saharan Africa as well.
And in the studio here we have the man himself, Sybran Strauss. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris.
Just to start off with, what sort of an entrepreneur do you see yourself as?
Chris, I think I'm not a born entrepreneur. I think I'm more made, or a forced one. I think my background has always been geography. It's been my first love. Reading maps, reading atlases. And we're not a lot of jobs out there, so I was forced to start my own thing, and had a good partner, and the timing was right. So that's. But I think I wasn't really born. I was made.
Now you're by trade an urban geographer. Now I must say, to be honest with you, the first urban geographer I ever know I've ever met. So can you just outline to us, you know, how you got interested in this sort of thing?
Well, as I said, geography has always been the thing, and really the only academically subject that I was ever inclined to really interested in. And urban geography, you've got two broad fields, which is more the physical geography, which is your rocks and your weather and all of that. And human geography has been my passion, to understand a city, where people live, where do they shop, new developments in an area, and to understand the spatial relationship of a place. Yeah.
Now this has come down to, I mean, your father and also your grandfather were passionate about geography.
Yeah, it's one of my earliest childhood memories was sitting on my granddad's lap with a globe. I still have that globe today, and he tells me about all these wonderful places, and ever since travel is a big passion of mine, and I was always fascinated by a map, or looking at something on a piece of paper and then trying to make sense of it and then physically go there yourself. And I'm very blessed to the extent that I can really apply my passion in our business today.
Now, your father was a professor of theology at university. Now he's a retired cattle farmer.
Yes.
But he was also a passionate man about geography.
Yeah, geography and history, and really understanding new territories and meeting people. And so I grew up in a household that I was very blessed with. We did a lot of trips. We never went to the same place twice. My dad always tried to, sometimes to the unhappiness of my mother, because it weren't always the most kosher places that we went to. But it's always been very interesting, and we've had some wonderful trips together, and I think I've taken over that love.
When you went away to university, you studied urban geography, and when you came out, you went to work for a corporate here
Yes.
in Johannesburg
Yes.
for a couple of years. You cut your teeth there, you think?
Yes, absolutely. I was a Afrikaans boy from Bloemfontein coming up to Joburg. It was a great experience. I was blessed to find a good position at the company. And after a couple of years, 3 or 4 years, my boss and I actually we resigned and we started our own thing.
So what gave you that spark of entrepreneurial thought when you were working away there? Because you had a solid job, a pension and all that sort of stuff. What gave you that spark?
Well, you want to do your own thing. You feel that we were in a very good, in a good company, in a good department, and I had a good position. But it's really just that yearning to really do your own thing, apart from obviously trying to make more money that you currently earn. But it's really just to do your own thing. And we had dreams, my partner and I together, that we want to do together, and that's how we started.
So then you quit your jobs on a Friday, Monday morning. There you were, sitting there with no money, no job. Perhaps quite a bit of hope. But what did you
do? We resigned in December, so at least we had a Christmas to think it over. We started in January, and we physically started from Stephen's garage. I remember that January was very hot, and we literally had a couple of weeks argument about should we buy an aircon or not. Because you really look at your pennies. So I went to work to the garage, to my computer in shorts, and I had a pair of trousers. If someone come and visit us, I had to go to a meeting. So we moved on from there, luckily. But it was really very humble beginnings, and we've grown our company organically.
That's one of those great sort of fledgling entrepreneur arguments, isn't it? The little things in the office that you can control, and your whole business that you can't control. Yes. I mean, did this kind of difficulties, did they persist where you were still waiting for your first business?
No, luckily not. I think when we left our job, or the company that we worked for. We left with a full blessing, and we actually took the clients that we serviced there, we took with us. We took the physical machines and the data, and they're still one of our clients today. So never burn your bridges, very important. And luckily those growing pains, well, we still have growing pains, but other pains, but it luckily didn't last too long. We bought the aircon.
You bought the aircon. All right. At least
the cheapest one.
At least you sold. Oh, there you are. There's a good entrepreneur for you.
It was an aircon, nevertheless.
So there you are. So you got your first job. Do you remember your first check? I mean, how much it was, and how much euphoria there was when you went to the bank?
Jeez, well, to the bank it was a lot. It was 3,000 rands. It was 1999. But after the 5th of the month, it wasn't a lot of euphoria left. I remember about 6 months after I started, well, as a junior now, I got my first bonus, and it was April thereabouts, and I went with friends. We went to the South Coast for Easter, and I had a bonus. I had like 8,000 rands or something, and I thought this money could never end, and I think I blew 10 grand that weekend. So after that weekend, I was in the red. So I realized quickly that even if you think you've got a lot of money, you can lose it quickly.
Well, it must have been a very great weekend. But
it was.
Okay, but in those early days as well, bearing in mind the service you're selling is we can tell you, we can research for you, we can tell you how many people you can expect for business if you open up a retail store. What is it like selling that when you're trying to make your own name? It must be quite difficult sometimes, because I'm sure a lot of people, as you say, there are not many people in the trade.
Yep.
What, do you tell people when you're trying to sell them that kind of service?
Well, most of our marketing has really been word of mouth and really just consistently delivering good reports. And the industry in Africa isn't that big. It's a massive continent, but it's really the market isn't that big. So our reports get around and they see our names. They see that hopefully they're impressed by what we've done, and that's how they come to us. They go to our website or they look us up and they come to us.
And in these recessionary times we talked about in the intro, how have you seen your bright idea of 10 years ago struggle a bit during the hard times?
Yes, we felt it, certainly. We've been going for 10 years now. The first 5 years was during the boom time as well, 2004, 5, 6, thereabouts, and we reaped the rewards. And I think the timing was good, the fact that we could build our small little business during those good times. And then when the global economic crisis hit, and we felt it certainly, we've managed to maintain what we have, and we've got a couple of very exciting things that we're busy with. One is an online portal. It's called africaeye.co.za, and it allows the online user globally to access our data. So typically for your entrepreneurs who's looking at a specific site, and he needs to know, what's my catchment area, how many people live there, what do they earn, where's my competition, and essentially how big that market is. So we can tell that also for the online customer. Okay,
we're going to hold it there. We're going to talk a lot more in detail about your business and also business across the African continent in the second half. It's time for a short ad break. More when we return with the Entrepreneurial Edge. Welcome back to the show that gives you the entrepreneurial edge. I'm Chris Bishop. Now, if you have any comments or suggestions, you can email us on entrep@abn360.com. You can also follow us on Twitter. Our handle is entrepedge. Still in the studio with me, I have Sybran Strauss, co-founder of Fernridge Consulting. Now, let's talk a little bit more in detail about exactly what you do as an entrepreneur. Okay, I'm telling you that I want to open a supermarket on the Marginal in Mozambique, in Maputo. I come to you and I say, this is what I want to do. How can you help me?
Well, typically in our consulting business, you'd be either a retailer or a developer or a bank or a landlord. And so we would start with firstly gathering what information is out there, open source information on the web. There's a lot of reports that fly around that we look at. Obviously, our own history, the work that we've done before in Maputo. I think we must have done 10 projects before in Maputo. So there's already a bit of a base to work from, and then it's going out there. There's no substitute to going out there. And
now, when you go out there, where do you start? How do you approach it?
Well, firstly, you start by planning properly your trip. Really, you need 2 weeks properly to plan your trip and know that you've got, apart from the practical logistics, but to meet the right people. So really how you start when you go out there is you go to the site, because typically it's a piece of land or a shop, and you go and you look at it and you experience it. You go back a couple of times to see different times of the day, the movement of cars, of people, to really understand it and to smell it and to feel it. And then you talk to professionals. I mean, we typically go out there, we talk to retailers, to developers, to town planners, to architects, to leasing agents. Professionals in the know, we ask them about what's happening in the city, what makes it tick, where's the new developments, what's kicking. And then obviously GPS, camera, you go and visit the competing stores, whichever may be relevant, new developments. There's always an area that's booming, that you see new houses, and you go there, you speak to people. So it's really just gathering raw data, and then when you get back, you try and make sense of it all. And then we've got models, we've got a lot of benchmarks that we measure against.
Do you actually knock on doors and say, look, can we talk to you about where you shop and how much you spend?
Yeah, we do that, Chris. We find that it's easier in Africa, outside South Africa. People tend to be very inviting, and we work with very good partners in doing that speak the local language, that we supervise, but that we also trust. And they go to a couple hundred households in a predefined area. They knock on doors. They ask people at the head of the households, where do you shop? How much do you spend? What do you like? What's needed in your city? What's your likes, your dislikes, your ambitions, and all of that. And that's sort of empirical data that we also bring into the project that really gives a nice flavor, apart from just measuring the cold hard facts.
Of all the people, all the retailers who come to you and say, look, we want to set up here, do us a survey, what percentage of them actually go ahead with it after you've advised them, would you say?
I think the majority go ahead. They in our consulting business, by the time they knock on our door, they have got already a good feeling about this and might have done some in-house research or something. It's not really like it's just a hit and miss kind of thing. So really, when they come to us, they're relatively serious about the development, and they want now a pair of objective and independent and scientific eyes on their opportunity to advise them if it's a viable opportunity or not.
And just also a question, which I'm sure a lot of people out there are asking in their minds now, what's the kind of success and failure rate for retailers across the continent in these difficult times?
Well, it is. I can't really give you a percentage, Chris. I don't know. It's very different. It's very different. I mean, it could be even in a place like Sandton. So to say that Sandton has perhaps a high failure rate doesn't mean that Sandton is a bad place. It might mean that Sandton is a very competitive place. So it's generally you can't really say, but it's a competitive market, especially in South Africa, and that's one of the things we see in sub-Saharan Africa, outside South Africa, is that there's less competition.
And we'll talk a bit more about the broader continent just now, but what are the greatest hazards you think in these times when you're opening up a retailer? I mean, what are the real red flags that people like yourself look for?
Well, in South Africa specifically, it's really cannibalization and competition. There's so many competing centers and competing retailers. It's really to find your competitive edge. It's going to be difficult to find a place in this country, apart from the real outlying rural areas where there are a lot of developments that we see. But you're going to find competition. There's no virgin territory. You're going to fight with guys that know the area probably better than you, that's done their business there before, and you have to have a good case to take them on.
And there's always the old saying, the customer's always right. I mean, do you get people coming back saying, look, I'm sorry, we don't agree with what you're saying? Do you ever get that?
Yes, I do. Yeah, we do that.
How tough can that be?
It's tough. It's the tough part of the job, because we don't tell a nice story. Not always, It's nice to have a project that's got a positive outcome, but when that's our job. We have to limit our clients' risk. I mean, that's really what we do. Is we limit our clients' risk, and we try and we help them to make the right decisions, and so it's part of the due diligence. So we also, I like it when our clients challenge us. And ask questions and say, but what did you consider this? Did you consider that? But in the end, the client, being the retailer or the developer, he probably have to err on the liberal side, because he needs to get it done. Whereas us, we need to err on the conservative side. And there in the middle between us, that's where the truth lies, and we try and find that space.
But interestingly enough, I mean, have you ever had a situation where you've said, well, perhaps you shouldn't do this, and then the shareholders have said, okay, let's do it. They've overridden your advice.
Yes.
Really? Is that quite common?
No, luckily not.
Yeah.
You know, in the early days, perhaps when our name wasn't really that established. I mean, I had one incident where I presented the report, and the guy was challenging me, but it was really, I mean, it was a no-brainer. There was no potential, and he physically took the report and he put it in a dustbin. So, I mean, that's not nice to see, but in the end, it's his decision. I mean, we are an advisor. We are independent. We're objective. There is no reason for us to tell a sugar-coated story, or to you know, because with numbers and statistics, you can tell whatever you want to, but it's really to limit the risk for the client.
Yeah, it must be very tough sometimes, but you must have met some great entrepreneurs from the north to south of Africa during your time. Anyone stand out in your mind?
Yes, I can't really think of anyone specifically. I mean, you meet some colourful characters. You meet some guys with ambition and really visionaries, and also, you know, I see. I can't really think of one person that stand out, or one guy that I really see as my hero or anything like that. You meet so many interesting people, especially when you go outside the borders, and guys that's really done it, and it's great to work with people like that.
And you're off travelling, you're going to Mozambique, you're going to Zambia, you're going right across the continent. Where do you think are the hot spots on this continent for retail? Yeah.
Look, we've got a... There's a couple of hotspots, and just before I answer your question, I want to tell you how I can answer it. We've got we map African cities. We've got in South Africa, we've got about 200 cities and towns mapped, meaning that we get aerial photography, and we physically count all the households in a specific city, and we've got it in 65 African cities as well. So we've got a very good idea of where the hotspots are that you can physically quantify. And when you couple that with going to do a site visit, you get a really good sense. Chris, I think the hotspots on the continent is in West Africa, certainly Ghana. There's a lot of action there. It's a very stable environment. It's a great country. Nigeria, obviously, I mean, it's simple maths. There's so many people. It's a growing economy. They're bound to overtake South Africa. And then East Kenya, certainly. And there's beautiful things happening in Rwanda and Uganda in the Eastern Hub. And then South, apart from the neighboring countries, we see a lot of stuff happening in Zambia.
I mean, Rwanda's an interesting story, actually. I mean, I've been reporting there since about 2005. And to see a country come from a low base, which it was after the genocide, to see it slowly coming up. What sort of experience are you having there?
It was fascinating. It was probably my number one trip to go there, to Kigali. I think 2 years ago. The place is so clean. I heard the stories before, but you can't believe it. I mean, I was there for a week, and really I once saw a cigarette butt, you know, standing there. They've got teams that clean the place in the city, and after all the bad things that happened in 94 or 5, I think.
94.
It's really that place. They've got a strong leader, and they've turned, all of the people have turned the country around, and I think they set for good. It's a small country, it's a small economy, it's landlocked, but there's certainly a lot of potential there, and a fascinating place.
And you think it's a place there'll be luxury brands there sooner rather than later?
I think so. There's that top end of the market is always there, but I think also that retailers and developers shouldn't all go for that. You know, you need that middle income market, and that's the lure of Africa. Really, is that growing middle class, because that's what drives shopping. How
do you want to be remembered, do you think, as an entrepreneur? Looking back now, you're into it now. How do you want people to regard you?
Sure. Well, hopefully I'm too young to start to be remembered. I need to do a couple more things, but really, I mean, in Fernridge, my partners and I and our people, we proudly South African, and we passionately African. We believe in the African story, and hopefully we can do so much more to bring prosperity and development to this big continent that lie out there, that we've experienced, that the opportunities are there.
We at the Entrepreneurial Edge wish you the best of luck with that. Sybran Strauss, the co-founder of Fernridge Consulting, thank you very much for your company on this show. I'm afraid that's all we got time for. That's the